All right, well, thank you for coming. My name is Misty Madero. I manage the UCR Riverside EPIC SBDC SBIR STTR Resource Center. I'm glad you could join us today for our SBIR Talk Series, Advice from SBIR Awardees. Our Resource Center is part of our UC Riverside EPIC Small Business Development Center, or SBDC. Our SBDC provides individualized support to early stage tech entrepreneurs and companies in Southern California to grow their business at no cost. Additionally, our Resource Center will help you with the following: locate agencies offering funding with focus on your innovation, understand the SBIR STTR programs and requirements, connect and communicate with the agency's program managers, connect with university resources, students, and faculty experts, review and improve proposal drafts, produce a viable commercialization plan, find resources for your company, and build your team and connect to potential partners. If you are interested in learning more about the Resource Center or EPIC SBDC, please email me for information, or you can check out our website at sbir.ucr.edu. This webinar is brought to you today in part and thanks to the SBA and our lead center, Orange County Inland Empire Network. So to start today's program, I would like to introduce you to our moderator, Martin Kleckner. He is an EPIC SBDC EIR, or Entrepreneur in Residence, and our SBIR STTR expert with over 30 years experience in entrepreneurship. Please welcome Martin.
Misty, thank you very much indeed, and for also relieving the obligation of me having to introduce myself. That always helps. So anyway, a couple of weeks ago, Misty and I were chatting, and she came up with a thought, hey, Martin, for mostly humanitarian reasons, why don't you not give the next presentation? And why don't we bring in some pros? And I thought that was an absolutely excellent idea. So today I am really excited to have two research professors here at UC Riverside who have exceptional, extraordinary experience and will be able to provide a great deal of insight for those of us who are starting out in the SBIR and STTR world. So this is going to be a very, very valuable hour. And so I was prepared to give the introductions, but Dr. Keogh and Dr. Anvari, would you have an interest in introducing yourselves instead of me? These are exceptional backgrounds, but maybe it might be better if you introduced yourself respectively to us. And maybe we can start with Dr. Keogh first, if you don't mind, but that'd be all right.
Really happy to do so. So hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Keogh. I'm a computer science professor for the last 19 years at UC Riverside. And I guess importantly here, I've won about $40 million of funding academically. But to the SBIR program in the last 18 months, I've managed to win 2 phase 1s, 1 phase 2. And 10 years ago, I also won 3 individual phase 1s. So I have some experience with the SBIR program.
That's terrific. And Dr. Anvari, you're next.
Sure. It's a great pleasure for me to have this opportunity to just share some of my experiences with SBIRs with you guys. So I've been here at UC Riverside since 2006 in the Department of Bioengineering. And the background that I thought may be of interest to everybody is my experience with starting up a small business back in 2015-16 timeframe, where to date we've managed to receive 2 phase 1 NIH SBIR awards. And at the same time, I've also had the opportunity to serve on NIH SBIR panels for about 10 years on the medical imaging study section. So I've also had some experience being on the other side where I've reviewed proposals as well. So I'm here to share my experiences both as a person who started a small business and got some, has received some SBIR funding, and also from the other side being a reviewer and sort of the kind of things that in reviewers' mind what they're looking for.
Terrific, and thank you very much for both of those intros. And I can assure everybody in attendance, they gave you the Reader's Digest version of their background. It's really terribly impressive. So I'm going to have to make a little bit of a confession. I actually prepared some questions, but that was just only in anticipation of something that I can guarantee you is not going to happen, and that's going to be crickets chirping, because I'm assuming that every one of you who have shown up today have at least a few questions that are burning and that you would like to get answered. So we will be able to move toward that as soon as we possibly can. But based upon those questions that I thought that might be germane or of great interest to each of you, I sent them in advance to Dr. Keogh and Dr. Anvari, and so they would be very happy to answer those. And I can do it two ways. Dr. Keogh, you had actually prepared a PowerPoint slide which I thought had exceptional information. Are we in a position, Misty or Dr. Keogh, to actually share those slides and go through those? And then if that's possible, then we could flip over to Dr. Anvari, who would essentially address the same topics. Is that doable, Misty?
Yeah, Eamonn, you should be able to share your slides.
Terrific. So it's all yours.
Oh, great. Here's just a few kind of top 10 tips from my personal experience, but as a reviewer and a submitter of these awards. I've already given you this bit of background, so I won't go too much over it. I guess one thing I've learned over the years, and people like Leslie and Martin actually helped me here, is that originally I wrote SBIRs like a classic NSF award for research, and these are not the same thing. These are commercial grants, and you really got to keep that in the back of your mind, because academics, we like to go a different place in some sense. So let me just kind of give you some of my top 10 tips, if I can. This is kind of personal subjective, but I really like to have lots of nice images in my proposal. It keeps it from being too boring, and reviewers have to review many of these things, and they can get all boring. They kind of look all the same. And also they make things concrete. So here, for example, we could have said we did some work with some big customer and get some credit for that. But saying it is different to actually showing you doing that. So here in this little screen grab, our co-PI here, our co-founder, is actually in the field, these people collecting this data. And it makes it much more concrete and much more real. So nice images. Another idea I want to talk about is you need to convince the panelists that you are solving a real problem that someone A, cares about, and B, is willing to spend some money to solve, that you basically found their pain point. And you can do this kind of directly or indirectly in all kinds of ways. I actually like to do this very directly. So in my proposals, I often have a little bit of a mini interview where I talk to somebody who could be a customer, and I basically ask them what their pain points are, and they give me some information about how much they spend and what the problems are. And then I can expand upon that in my proposal. And once again, it makes it very real, very direct, and it shows you've done some customer research. You're not just making stuff in your head. You've actually gone out and talked to people to find out where the pain points are. Here's another example of that I've done for a different proposal. And again, panelists, I didn't quite like this. It shows you've done your homework in some sense, and that the need you believe is out there is a real concrete need. Another minor thing that comes back to the images, you have to have bios in your proposal, and it's a chance to boast about your experience, to get to review your confidence you can solve these problems. And I'm a big fan of these smiling headshot bios. People have done a lot of great research on this, and actually Dr. Pisani, who unfortunately is no longer with us at UC Riverside, did some work on this. Faces in proposals really improve the return rate, the acceptance rate, and so forth. This is known to charities, it's known to websites, known to all kinds of people. So if you have some attractive smiling faces, I do the best I can here, feel free to put them in your proposal. People occasionally forget to do this, or they do it very poorly, but you need a detailed Gantt chart in your proposal, typically towards the end. Often people think, I can't predict exactly what's going to happen next year on a month-by-month basis, So they do this very vaguely at a very high level. But program managers love this, and panelists love this, where you break down month by month what every member of the team is going to be doing. And it basically shows the reviewers you've thought about this at a great detail, where the money's going to be spent, where the time's going to be spent, and so forth. It might be kind of too precise. It might be slightly fictional in some sense, that you can't really predict that well, but you should make that effort, again, to give the reviewers confidence that you know what you're doing. And one last point is, the last thing you should say in this Gantt proposal is about what happens after phase 1. So there should be some discussion somewhere in the proposal, okay, assume we got phase 1, how can it continue on? Presume that's partially a phase 2, but other things like investments or customers and so forth, needs to be some discussion of what happens after the phase 1, assuming we get it. So you need, in the proposal, some research tasks, because the award is partially for research as well as commercialization. And it's important to make these tasks nice and crisp. And you can do that by giving them explicit task numbers. You need to say what the problem is, why it's commercially important, not necessarily scientifically important, why it's commercially important. Why if you solve this, you can actually now make a better mousetrap and make some money out of it. How you might go about solving it, your initial results. You need to make it explicit about how you know when you succeeded in this problem, right? What's the metric of success? And then what the deliverables are going to be. Are deliverables a prototype, a product, a patent, and so on and so forth? Make that very, very clear. And of course, you can tie these task numbers directly back to your Gantt chart to make that mapping very, very clear. This is not necessarily likely, but at the end of the day, in some sense, the federal government is paying for this, and they want to talk to their boss, which is the taxpayer and the voter and so forth. So anything you do to help the federal world is very much appreciated. So if you're providing jobs for somebody in a historically underdeveloped area, if you're helping the US military, again, unlikely, but a really big bonus point if you are, helping national parks and so on and so forth, mitigating climate change, these things are things you can really talk up. Let me give you one example. In our current proposal, we're working on mosquito surveillance. And we're doing a very detailed thing here with insects, but we point out actually that this actually going to help tourist economies. If you're in Florida and you have an outbreak of Zika, guess what? All your tours and stuff take a huge hit, the hotels, the flights, and so forth. So it's indirect, but we're actually helping American economy in tourism by working with insects. And any claims like this you can make and justify will be well appreciated. And so my final tips, I think it's very important to have a proposal that's completely free of spelling mistakes and typos. And unfortunately, I'm really bad at this personally. So I have a solution, which is actually pay for someone to make a pass to my proposal and make sure I have none. Because every typo you have, this reduces confidence a little bit in the reviewers, and that quickly adds up. It's a great idea to get someone else's eyeballs in your proposal, ideally somebody experienced in this world, because they'll point out things that you never occurred to you that you did that are wrong or going to hurt you. So eyeballs are very helpful. And then finally, I know Martin will agree with this strongly. Follow the formatting requirements. They're not suggestions, they are compulsory. And I've actually seen proposals returned from in the wrong font size or the wrong margin with no review. And you've wasted a month of your life writing a proposal that never even gets looked at. They're not joking around, follow the requirements. It's very, very important. So at this point, I'm finished my remarks, but I'm happy to answer questions or hand over to our next speaker. Martin, it's all yours.
Dr. Keogh, thank you very much indeed. And before we flip over to Dr. Anvari, I want to remind everyone that this is for you. This is your show. So be prepared, and you can either put it under chat, or I believe, Misty, there's a way to raise your hand in the participants section. And yeah, we'll get to that. Thank you, Kieran. Again, raise your hand with regard to participants and also for chat, and Misty will be quarterbacking that. But before we get there, Dr. Anvari, why don't we flip over to you? And you are familiar with the same questions that Dr. Keogh addressed, and I'd be very happy to throw those out to you again, or how would you like to handle this?
So I can share those questions,
Terrific.
and then I can answer them. Unfortunately, I don't have as nice of a slide as Dr. Keogh presented,
No worries.
but
No worries
I can
whatsoever.
share my screen with some of the information, and then I'll take it from there. So I'm gonna share my screen now, and. Okay, so, but maybe before I actually get to specific questions that you had asked us to address, I will share with you something that the previous speaker had said, and I just want to sort of reiterate that and show you the commonality. So it was pointed out that when preparing, one of the things that is important in preparing your proposal is identifying the tasks and tying them back to your specific aim. So I just pulled up this successful proposal, and I hope everyone can see it. So we have this table that shows exactly as it was pointed by the previous speaker, that you clearly define your tasks and what you'll be doing over specific periods of time, here in this case for each quarter, and how these tasks sort of map to the actual aims that you have that you are proposing. So if it's okay, I'll just switch to the questions, and then I can hopefully answer these questions, and then maybe add to some of the things that the previous speakers had pointed out, and also throw in some of my own experiences. So my experience, so this is question 1A. My experience has been with NIH. So as you know, NIH is interested in medical research, and under their SBIR program, they're interested in commercializing technologies that, of course, are relevant to medicine. So my background, or the company that the small business that I started, we are interested in developing materials or probes that can be used for imaging, or the same probes can be used for delivery of therapeutic materials. And these awards that I have been associated with are again, are related in the medical imaging field, and also related to the medical therapeutics. So to date, the company has received 2 SBIR awards, and a phase 2 associated with one of them is currently under review. Right. So as far as some of the things, the first, key 3 things that I think are important. The first one, I would probably say, what you are proposing, again, this is SBIR, so the commercial aspect is very important. So as it was previously pointed out, this is not necessarily an academic research or research that you, of course, you'll be doing in your lab, but it's really something that has commercial value, and is also has societal impact. So, so in other words, based on those criteria, having commercial value and subsequently impact, it's important that what you propose is, again, is something that's, first of all, feasible and can be translated. So again, in the context of NIH, you know, if I'm proposing something for imaging, then I need to, you know, really lay out the foundation why this particular materials or probes that we are proposing has clinical impact. We need to show that it has value. And number two, that it has the potential to be commercialized and translated. So that would be one of the, you know, of the three key things that I would like to emphasize is the fact, the value of what you're proposing, both is commercial value and it's and tied to that is the impact. The second thing is the team. I think it's important to that that this should not be a solo PI. It's really important that there are individuals involved with your grant application that bring in relevant and complementing expertise. So just as an example from my own experience, you know, we are interested in tumor imaging and in particular in ovarian cancer imaging. So given that I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a gynecologist, I'm not a radiologist. So it's really important to have to get those individuals with the right expertise in your proposal from early on when you're proposing your phase one, and then hopefully maintain that throughout you know, the project period and moving on to phase two. So having the relevant expertise, you know, having a team that brings in the expertise that are needed for the proposal is important. Number three is providing a proposal that reads well. So again, as it was pointed out in the previous proposal, you know, the technical details are important, but that's not everything. So if you have to cut down on the technical details, but emphasize again the broad vision, the broad picture is important. Consistency in your proposal, using consistent terminologies and following format is important. You know, those are things that we may not take very seriously, but again, just having served on these review panels, I can say that sometimes the reviewers get frustrated, really frustrated when things are not consistent, appropriate formats are not followed. So those things are important. So common mistakes, again, not, you know, proposing something that the PI does not have an experience or expertise in. The relevant expertise are not included, and guidelines. Sometimes even the agencies can return the proposal without even review, just simply because appropriate guidelines were not followed. So one example I can give you is that, let's say you submit what's called a direct phase 2. So a direct phase 2 is where you basically wish to receive phase 2 funding without having done the phase 1. So what that means is you have to have equivalent of what you would have achieved under a phase 1 study in terms of a feasibility. So you can do that, but if you, for example, say in your phase 2 that this work was done under a phase 1, then that runs into some administrative issues, and your proposal can get returned. So all I'm saying is it's really important to make sure that the guidelines are followed. Key criteria, and I think number 4 and number 5 are sort of related to each other. I think the key criteria that study sections, at least I can talk about the NIH study sections, is again, the ultimate impact and the potential for commercialization. That's certainly one of the key criteria. The PI, the principal investigator, and the team, if they collectively can offer the potential, demonstrate that they have the potential to carry through and achieve those tasks and specific aims. And thirdly, the infrastructure. There has to be evidence that yes, this is small business can carry through. They have enough resources, both in terms of human resources and also physical resources. If they don't have themselves the physical resources, are they hooking up with somebody or a university or another institution that can provide those resources? I guess, and just to summarize the key criteria, I would say the commercial value and the impact, the team, and the resources and infrastructure to execute what is being proposed. So I think answered most of your question, Mark, and I can stop here, and then maybe we'll continue the way you would like to move forward with the meeting.
Terrific, and thank you very much indeed to both of you. And so now I think this may be an excellent time to flip into the raised hands and the questions. And Misty, did you want to take over for that, or I'd be very happy to deal with it as well, whatever your call is.
Read their questions, Martin. I think Roger raised his hand, and then we have questions in the chat.
Yep. So,
yes.
Roger, start first.
All right. I was intrigued by your showing the pictures, particularly, well, in graphics, particularly in 2 areas. One, you had pictures of the PI and so on. Where do those go? Do those go among the bio sketches, or do they go somewhere else, or do they?
In the main 15 pages, you have to discuss your team, and in there you have brief bios for the team. That's why I put the photographs. And really, the goal of that section is to convince people you have the right team, which isn't just the academics necessarily, but also somebody has some kind of commercialization experience. You cover all the parts of that, basically.
So you're saying that that's in the main, this is a phase 1.
Yes, it's the 15 pages, the main 15 pages.
Okay, so you're saying it's not in the bio sketches and not in the budget justification?
No, I mean, to be honest, I think most panelists look at those offline or, at the end. The main 15 pages and the 1-page summary is where you win or lose. And of the 15 pages, 1 or 2 pages are devoted to the team. And that's why I like to have those.
And the other part of that was the graphics. You showed a specific aims structured as a table. Is that something that is that intended as the specific aims, or is that repeated somewhere else in the following pages?
Actually, in my case, and that one, it's actually both.
Really? So you can put tables and graphics in the specific aims page?
I had done so, yes, successfully.
Does it have to be 11 point like everything else, or if it's in a table, can it be less?
I'm afraid to give you absolute advice. I typically have the table be 1 point smaller than the actual rest of the proposal. I never had a problem with that. And my figure captions are also 1 point smaller than the rest of the proposal. Never had a problem with that.
Well, thank you.
Thanks very much indeed, Roger, and it's great to see you again. After it's been a while. We have
Yeah, it has.
We definitely have to catch up and see what kind of trouble you're causing these days.
Good.
So Misty, we have several in the chat, and it looks like you have captured them. And Zeph, I see you have both a chat and a raised hand. Maybe it's the same topic.
Yes, it is. Sorry, I can take one off, but it's
no
the same
worries.
question.
Either way, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same question. I just wondered if, I mean, first of all, thank you. I wish I'd seen this before I actually started working on the application. So we did actually submit a project pitch. We got invited to apply for the full proposal.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, this is great. Now I can see how it could have made my life easier, but, you know, kind of beyond that point. So I was just wondering if any one of you guys had some insight into potentially about the schedule, because I think last year when the window closed in December, we were told we'd get a response in 3 months. But it seems that there are potentially changes afoot. I did try writing to them, and the only response I got was, we'll tell you soon. So I'm just trying to get a sense, because obviously what we submitted might not work anymore with the longer term delays.
I'm happy to tackle that, Dr. Keogh or Dr. Anvari, if you wish, or otherwise, if you have any insight on that, feel free to lead off.
I said a minor thing, because what we do a lot is with insects, and insects have seasons, and seasons, you know, we have no control over. We always build into our project a nice timeline, but we make some disclaimers saying we'll be flexible and so forth. Because yes, proposals can get, funded in 3 months, but in they've also been dragged out to 5 or 6 months. No information you get from how long it takes, essentially. So it's a great idea to have a concrete timeline, but to have it flexible enough that, you know, if you don't get funded the first time or the funding is delayed, you can still achieve all your goals.
Okay. Okay. I mean, okay.
I was just going to say, I can only talk about my experience with NIH, but it's probably very similar to NSF as far as the window of time and things like that. So NIH grant application and SBIR applications there are 3 cycles, and you submit them either on June 5th, October or September 5th, or on April 5th. And it takes about 3 months from your submission date to learn about the outcome of your proposal. So, and I imagine this is probably very similar. So you said you submitted in December, but you have not heard back, and now it's been 5 months. Is that what the question was?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, again, maybe, I don't know exactly how NSF cycles work. 5 months I mean, I've worked with NSF, you know, in terms of submitting grants to them, but not for an SBIR, but it's still, I think there's some similarity. So if it hasn't happened yet, it may just have been because of the current situation, maybe they weren't able to get all the reviewers at the same time as they had planned. But if it's been 5 months, my guess is that you will probably hear very, very soon. Usually normal time is about 3 months, but give it 3 extra months. But I think it should happen anytime soon. That would be my guess. But maybe Dr. Keogh he has more experience with NSF schedule, and maybe he can provide more insight.
Yeah, my experience is it is highly variable, and the length of time is not a good predictor of anything. You just have to be patient, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
I can insert that as well, Zeph. First of all, you had mentioned the NSF, so a few things have changed. Number one, of course, was the major impact of COVID-19.
Yeah.
And so there was, as you are probably familiar with, and many of you are, the Dear Colleague letter that was issued in March, NSF 20-065. So those initiatives, those projects have been pushed to the head of the line, and those are being considered. And so that is probably taking up the lion's share of the reasons why your responses have been delayed. You submitted in December 2019, and that was when all hell was just starting to break loose.
Well, actually, so I guess one of the things that we're trying to express to them is we, our proposal is actually for a device. And we really want, we thought of a different application under, a use under the COVID call. And the problem is you can't submit till you get a result on this first application, because that is one of the only few criteria. You can submit if you've been rejected or approved, but if your proposal is under pending. And I think that was also one of the reasons I was trying to see if somebody had an insight or there's a way for us to figure that out, because we wanted to submit, for a different COVID application, because my technology could be used for that.
Is, and we can help you there, Zeph, is we'll reach out to the program director and try to clear things up. Secondly, I think your other question was, and I realize I'm not supposed to be doing the talking here, but as you all of you may know, the National Science Foundation flipped away from specific deadlines into 4 windows of submission. Submission opportunities. The second submission window concludes tomorrow, the 4th of June, and then the third one starts the day thereafter. So that has also changed. Okay, so Misty, maybe we can flip into the chat questions. I think we've been compelling them to wait a little bit too long. Do you want to handle those, or should I?
Sure, I'll ask, let's see, Andrew asks, he said, I've found engineers, scientists that focus on the steak and not the sizzle. You seem to address the sizzle. How do you balance that? I think this is for Eamonn.
Thank you. I mean, part of it I try to do is, you're right, if you have too many equations, details, too much notation, people's eyes are going to gloss over. And part of it is kind of a little bit of trust me. And so for trust me, you can either say, you know what, my CV is so wonderful, trust me. That's always a bit dangerous. But saying you have some initial results, trust me, is much stronger. And if those initial results can be peer reviewed, so much the better. So often I say, I publish these results in a paper, peer reviewed, but I need to make them 10x better to be commercially viable, and so on and so forth.
Terrific, thanks. And Kieran and Andra, at least, and maybe if I scroll down, there'd be a few other ones. Both of them were asking if you had any tips on the project pitch. And I would imagine, as you know, there are the 4 key questions there that need to be addressed with limited word count, number of characters that you're allowed to use to address each one. Do you have any tips from your experience in submitting project pitches to the NSF? What are good things to consider and what things may be best avoided?
I've got some, actually, I've had amazingly good luck with those. They've all been approved in like 18 or 24 hours. I think it's a very coarse filter. They just want to get rid of people who are, completely unrealistic or completely way out of the space. So if you actually get accepted in 24 hours, it isn't a great sign. It just basically means you kind of pass the minimum bar. So I think it's a fairly easy threshold to pass in most cases. If people want to email me out of band, I'm happy to share my last 2 examples of those to show how I did it. But I think it's a pretty easy bar to pass in most cases.
That is a fact. In fact, I was expecting that bar to be a little bit higher. So as Eamonn, Dr. Keogh, you've mentioned, If you have not been cleared with the project pitch, it really there must have been something wrong. That's for sure. So Kieran, I think you had, is it you or someone else had, yeah, Kieran's question relative to word count. Is word count a very strict requirement? And I suspect, Kieran, that you mean, I don't know whether you mean project pitch, and the answer is yes, but with regard to the project description, the content of the full-on proposal, what's your take on that, Dr. Keogh or Dr. Anvari?
It is a strict requirement, and you need to be a little bit careful because sometimes NSF counts words slightly differently than Microsoft Word, for example. If you have a definite word and so on and so forth, how do you count numbers? So you need to be a bit careful. You might be 500 words in Microsoft Word, and if you go to NSF website, you might be 502 pages, or 2 words, and be a little bit over. So give yourself a tiny bit of wiggle room, I recommend. And as it happens, I think actually it's a good exercise. If you can't explain your ideas tersely, it might not be good ideas, right? I mean, it's a good forcing function to make you explain things in a very terse amount of space.
So for NIH, for a phase 1, it's really the page limit. You're limited to 6 pages for a phase 1 and 12 pages for a phase 2. The only place that the word count comes in is in the abstract. So in one section of your entire package or proposal to NIH, one component is what's called the abstract or the summary. And there you're limited to 30 lines, not so much words, but 30 lines. So NIH is, the only restriction is really on the number of pages, with the exception of the abstract where you have to have within 30 lines.
Roger, I think you have another raised hand. Or is that the same one that you had raised earlier? You still with us, Roger? Roger Lieb? So we'll flip into Wilson Hago.
No, here, I just was muted there.
Okay, all right.
I do actually have another question, and that is that you had just talked about 6 pages and 12 pages earlier in addressing an earlier question. You talked about 15 pages. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Right, so that's NSF versus NIH. NIH for phase 1 is 6 pages, and NIH for phase 2 is 12 pages. The 15 page, I think, is for NSF.
Well, at the risk of boring other people on the call, then going back to where the pictures of people belong in an NIH grant, where might those go?
Right. So I would not recommend putting him under your bio sketch. So there is a section in your NIH application where you have to provide your bio sketches, and those are limited to 5 pages for each personnel. So yes, if you like to include photos of your team, you will do that under your research strategy section. So the research strategy section under phase 1 is limited to 6 pages, but you can format it or structure it any way you wish. So if you have to have a section under your research strategy section, if you want to call it the investigating team or the team, there you could include photos if you wish.
But not in the bio sketches?
Not in, as far as I know, no.
Correct,
yes. It's probably against the rules if you include in your bio sketch.
Okay. And the budget justification, the same thing?
Same thing. I would not include it in the budget justification.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Roger. Wilson, you had a question. And so fire away if you wish, or I can read your question on your behalf.
Yeah, I can just start the question. Yeah, just in regards to the collaboration, contractors, mentioning contractors, do you recommend including biographical information or qualifications? Does that help at all for you?
I think you do want to show that your collaborator is someone who is qualified and someone that you either have worked with in the past or you can work with. And, you know, I don't recommend pandering, but I've written proposals where I realize, you know, we have two white guys, and, you know, a little bit of diversity in the team with my consultant maybe can help a little bit with that sometimes.
Okay, thank you.
Thomas, we overlooked, this is Thomas Sy, so sorry, we overlooked your earlier question. I apologize for that. Thomas, are you still with us?
Yes.
Hey, Thomas, there you are.
Yeah.
Long time no see, huh?
Yeah. Good to see everyone.
Yeah, so fire away, or I can read it for you, whatever you wish.
It's fundable. The specific projects or domains that are more fundable than others.
Okay, so it sounds like you're hailing from the planet Zorkon, so I'll try to I'll read the question on your behalf if that's okay with you. Thomas this is to both, is that are there particularly domains that are more fundable than others? For example, have they, and I believe, Thomas, you're referring to any of the 11 agencies, have they funded projects in the psychology domain?
So yes, NIH is, I believe, actually has an institute called National Institute of Mental Health, I want to say, but I could be wrong on the official name. But yes, that will certainly be of interest to NIH. So as far as what you call special domains, what you need to recognize is, you know, there are unsolicited applications where you can just submit any topic that's that you wish to pursue, and depending on the topic, NIH will assign it to the appropriate institute that may be interested in funding, you know, whatever it is you're proposing. And in addition to the unsolicited, every now and then they also release specific calls for, you know, proposals in specific areas. So you may also just want to watch out for those calls as they come in, and I wouldn't be surprised if there may already be calls, existing calls on, on research proposals in psychology. So in short, I think it would be of interest to NIH.
And let me just jump in briefly. Let me just jump in briefly. I'm not sure if it's appropriate, but if psychology work somehow could be reframed or mention American military mental health or post-traumatic stress syndrome, that could be quite, useful. There's a gentleman who has a company locally called Insect Technologies. They do insect work. And quite often he's been able to get SBIRs by basically saying, well, this insect attacks our soldiers in Syria or Afghanistan, and it causes stress on our soldiers. So give me some money to look at this, basically. So if psychology can be framed a little bit military, it doesn't have to be, but if it can be, that would not hurt your chances.
Terrific. I have a question that I was anticipating someone else in our group today to ask the question. It's probably because it's not important, but I think I'll ask it anyway. And that has to do with protection of data rights and IP. How have you both dealt with that in the preparation of your proposals?
So I try to play both sides of the game. So to be clear, there's two competing pressures here. One is to make money, which means you have to protect your intellectual property and inventions. On the other hand, people who read these are often, partially or fully academics who love sharing things. So often I say something to the effect of, we're going to collect this wonderful data set, we're going to embargo it for 1 year. In that 1 year, we're going to commercialize and make money. But after 1 year, we're going to publish it, we're going to give away this data for free. So I play both sides of the game and appease both people there.
Terrific. I've got another question, and it has to do with letters of endorse and letters of support. Those are probably not at all important. Is that pretty much your opinion as well, that letters of support are absolute no value whatsoever?
And I wouldn't go that far, Martin.
You know I'm kidding there, and it's something that I set great store by. And I just wanted to get your personal takes on how important letters of support.
I think they are very important. You know, if it's a technology, whatever it is you're proposing, and if you can get endorsement letters from experts in the field who you know, who would be interested in using your technology, that would really, I think, strengthen your case. So those letters of support can come from people who are interested in your technology, who can endorse it, or the letters of support could also come from people who confirm that, you know, for example, you have access to labs, you have, you know, the resources that you are proposing are indeed available. So those letters of support are important, and they can support various things, you know, endorsing your technology and or confirming, you know, whatever things that you've said in your proposal.
Yeah, I totally agree. It could not be more important. It's worth taking the time to really cultivate those letters. We've all seen kind of boilerplate letters in proposals, and they read exactly like boilerplate. And unlike academic grants, the freedom to say what they want to say is much more greater. So they really could, you know, confirm your claim that this is a pain point. They could confirm that they'd be willing to buy your product or service, you know, if it was commercially available today and so forth. So it's really worth the time to cultivate those and do a nice job on those letters.
Terrific. Thomas, you had what I consider to be a very good question, and so feel free to ask it if you wish.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I had a question with regards to team composition. Who should be part of the team? It appears from the discussion so far that it should be made of both academics and industry partners.
So I can share my experience. It's not, at least for NIH, it's not an absolute requirement that you should have academic partners, as long as you have partners that can complement or provide the expertise towards what you're doing is acceptable. But having said that, I want to say a great majority of applications include academicians. So it's not an absolute requirement, but again, if the presence of an academician or research lab at a given university is needed towards your specific aims, towards what you're proposing, then that's what it is. If those what you're proposing can be accomplished by another company that has the expertise, the resources, then that would be acceptable too. So there is no absolute requirement that you have to have, an academic partner, but a lot of times there are, just because I think the small businesses are finding out that, a lot of times what they're proposing to do as far as, for example, experiments or analysis can be done, in collaboration with somebody at a university.
And can I just add one thing to this? If you do have academics in your proposal, you want to convince the panelists that these academics have enough time, because all academics are overcommitted. So it might be, if possible, good to mention you can get a sabbatical, you can get a leave of absence, your dean's very supportive, whatever it might be. But some texts say you're not overcommitted, you can actually make contributions to that proposal, you can get the work done.
Dr. Keogh and Dr. Anvari, do we need to have a letter from the academics, by the way, to confirm that?
I've not used it so far, I've gotten away with it. I haven't challenged yet. So I just basically truthfully said I'd be on sabbatical for this year, and I have the chance to get a leave of absence, year and so forth. Maybe that might be not a bad idea, especially if it's going to be a large company. I fortunately have co-founders who are helping me with more time than I have. But if you're a one-man show and you're an academic, you probably should prove with some letter that you actually have the flexibility or time available to do what you say you're going to do.
So, what I can add to that is, if you are a one-man show, and if you are from the academic side, for NIH, that will have to go under the STTR mechanism, because under the SBIR, you have to show that you have 51% appointment with the company. So if you're a faculty, you can't be employed at 51% at the company. Now, if somebody else from a company is submitting the application, and if you want to show that the person from academia has the acceptable level of commitment, a lot of times that can go into the budget justification and the budget. So you'll basically, one way to do this is you will issue a sub-award to the university lab, and they will have to show their own budget and budget justification and indicate how many months, for example, the university faculty is committing, their time to the proposal.
That's terrific. Well, everybody. Oh, okay. One more question, and then Jasmine, you're on, and then we'll wrap up.
Speaker this afternoon is Dr. Axina Biller. As I said earlier, she's neutron imaging expert.
Sorry,
Hello, can you hear me? This is Jasmine.
Hi, Jasmine. Yes, go
Hi,
ahead.
how are you? Yes, very quick question. I wanted to know, I came in late, I apologize for that. But I did want to know if there were sample SBIR proposals of past awardees that may be publicly available for new potential applicants to learn best practices from in regards to writing their own proposal. Is there like a source available online for us to view other SBIR proposals?
Hi, Jasmine. This is Eamonn. I've given Martin and Misty permission to share my previous successful proposals, as long as you keep them within UCR.
Okay, got it. I'll rewatch the recording.
Terrific. Yeah, just to let everybody know, my policy, unless we receive express permission from the authors of the proposal, such as what you just received from Dr. Keogh, we do not pass out or share proposals. That being noted, however, again, if we get express permission, then we're happy to do that. Again, under certain conditions, is what Dr. Keogh had just mentioned. Online, there are a few. There are several within the National Institutes of Health. They're somewhat dated, but they still give a reasonable presentation in terms of what successful proposals look like. And Misty and I do have those on file. And so that, and we'll be happy to share those with you. So if you are anything like me, you're going to be coming up with a bunch of questions after we hang up. Feel free to send those questions to Misty and me, and we'll be very happy with Dr. Anvari's and Dr. Keogh's permission. Send them along to them, and when their schedule permits, we'll respond to them. I'd like to thank you very, very personally, Dr. Keogh and Dr. Anvari, to sharing your valuable time with us today. Like, extremely important information, and we are just so delighted that you were able to join us today. And so on behalf of all of our guests today, we very, very much thank you for your generous time.
My pleasure.
And are very, very grateful. And Misty, yeah, Misty, do you have any closing comments that you would like to say to wrap things up?
Thank you again for Dr. Anvari and Dr. Keogh for presenting for us today. We appreciate it. And I put on the screen our upcoming webinars. We have a founders talk for our EPIC SBDC this afternoon. In 2 weeks, our SBIR Talk series, we're going to have the EPA program manager to talk about their new solicitation opening later this June. And on July 1st, we will have a special guest, Shomit Ghosh, to talk about COVID-19 impact on innovation. So please join us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email Martin and I. We're happy to help anytime. Thank you.
So with that, we will thank you and bid you goodbye. Stay safe and try not to get arrested. All right. Take care. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.